21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Why don't I start a little bit about what I do now, that kind of, and then the past will inform kind of how I got to where I am. And the way I say what we do now, so I'm the CEO of Shift Financial Insights, and we make accounting not suck for entrepreneurs. The reality is accounting sucks. So I'm a CPA and I think accounting sucks. CPA, at least in my part of the world, chartered professional accountant. And I've been a CPA for about 20 years, but to be honest, I think of myself more as an entrepreneur than an accountant. I've actually had businesses in manufacturing. I actually had a manufacturing business for 15 years. One of our products was actually hand sanitizer. So you could imagine the time we're in right now, if I was still in that, we'd be going crazy with hand sanitizer. Interestingly, we actually started hand sanitizer during SARS. That's when my company launched our first hand sanitizer. Then, of course, H1N1, it spiked again. And then now it's going crazy. And I actually have a couple of people that I'm coaching. I'm doing some business coaching for who've actually moved. They were in the craft distillery business, and now they're doing hand sanitizer because there's so much demand, obviously. So I had that business for 15 years. I also had a construction business. We built custom homes. Nothing on spec, no development, somebody who owned a piece of land and wanted to build their dream home. And I had a partner in both of those businesses. So I was in that business for about 7 years, and it was the same partner. So he invited me into the construction business. And I was also involved in a business, family business of cold storage. So public refrigerated warehousing. So giant, warehousing, but frozen. So of course, where I'm from in Vancouver, these were in just south of the border. So in Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. And so if you can imagine in that region, a lot of fish came through there, a lot of beef products. Interestingly, carbon fiber that was used in manufacturing had to be kept at temperature before the manufacturing process. So we had a whole facility dedicated just to carbon fiber. So I've been more of an entrepreneur than an accountant. And about, I guess maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I'd exited all of those businesses. Honestly, partly because I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't really love what I was doing day to day. And I took a little bit of time to figure out what was next in my life. It's those times when you kind of wake up and you're not exactly sure what to do. I invited some of that time into my life. And by chance, I was at an event. I'm very involved also with the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a global, we have members around the world. You have to be an owner to be part of the organization. I've been involved for almost 15 years. And I was in an event from somebody who was explaining to entrepreneurs the difference between how the bank looks at your books and how you look at your books, if you even understand them. And I remember he was a really great speaker, but very technical. And at the end of it, one of the guys sitting at the table knew I was out of all my businesses. He knew I was also an accountant. And he said, "Hey, Spencer, can you put this into my business for me?" And I had this aha moment, those moments of clarity. And I'm like, all the information the speaker is talking about is so important, but entrepreneurs know it's important. They don't know how to do it. They don't know, like entrepreneurs hate accounting and they hate their books and they're stuck, they're frustrated. I hear people say things like, "I'm not getting the information I need to run my business. I don't really know what information I need. I just know I'm not getting it." So yeah, that was kind of the birth of what I'm doing now, which I've been doing for the last few years. And really, again, making accounting not suck, seeing it from an entrepreneur's perspective rather than the accountant's perspective. So that's kind of what I'm doing now from a business. And that's how I spend most of my days. And I'm also really excited about that. And I'm excited about a vision for kind of what's next. There's so much disruption happening in the accounting world that what I see is actually disrupting that in terms of how financial information is delivered and analyzed for entrepreneurs. That's kind of it's one thing getting the books right. It's the next thing getting the story out of the numbers to really, really use that to make great decisions. So many entrepreneurs, even if their books are right, they're not understanding them. So that's my passion. That's what I love to do.
And you're very good looking person, and you
Oh,
have a great energy. So are you
thanks,
in
dear.
any kind of sport activities?
Um, yeah, so most people think I'm a bit crazy on top of the fact I'm an accountant, which people think is crazy. And I've been into endurance sport for a long time. I love ultra marathons, believe it or not. So I've run everything from 50 kilometers up to a 100 miler, which is 160 kilometers
100
in a race.
miles?
100 miles, yeah, in one
Really?
race. Yeah, that took me about 30 hours. And
Beautiful.
the other thing that's even crazier is it's a trail run. And there was, I think it was, I can't remember how much it was. I think it was 20 or 21,000 feet
Oh
of
my God.
elevation gain and loss. So not only were we running 100 miles, but it was up and down the whole time. And yeah,
Where
I'm
was
not.
where was your brain during the process?
Yeah, that's everybody's favorite question. Two things. A lot. One, it comes and goes. So in part, is sometimes it's just literally ow, 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 ow. This sucks. This is horrible. Why do you do this? This is awful. And then so other times it just gets into a rhythm. And a lot of people think, and I can only share what happens to me. Other people might be different, but they think it's almost like this meditative Zen Buddhist, where you go off and you float into this nothingness. No, not for me. My brain is going just as fast when I'm running as when I'm not. So there've been times when I've pushed so hard that just I was completely done, and then you just almost go numb. I haven't actually done a race for a number of years. I ran into I've had chronic back issues my whole life, like since I was about 15, and I'm 46 now, and it's amazing that I was even able to do all those races. And I don't blame the running for my back issues because I had them long before, but I ended up in a period for 3 years where I was in pain every day. And in fact, anybody that's had bad back pain, those episodes of 2 and 3 days where I couldn't get out of bed, you've had that too. Yeah. And so, I kind of started having more of those episodes, and I decided, now I'm really into fitness. I'm really into kind of intense 1 hour biking. I mean, right now during COVID, I'm on my bike trainer and I'm connected to Zwift. I don't know if you've heard of that. You're nodding. And I was riding with a friend in, where were we last at? Not London. We were in, I can't even remember, but they have cities around the world you can ride
Yeah,
in, and you can
yeah.
do it as a
Sure.
group. So great. So I'm more focused on kind of the shorter, more intense workouts that are good for fitness, but not maybe tearing my body down. Because let's be honest, doing an ultra marathon is not good for you. It's really not.
Do you have any tips and tricks regarding going from discomfort zone to comfort zone?
Oh,
And if you can match it with business, of course.
I do a fair amount of speaking on the topic. My talk is called "Un-F Your Books." You can figure out what the F means. I actually use running as quite a lens into business.
Hmm.
When you're running, you're chafing a lot. Imagine running for 20 hours. Wherever skin rubs on skin, it gets raw and chafed. And it can get so bad it'll knock you out of the race. Like I've been bleeding before from chafing, right? Same
Ouch.
thing with business, right? Like you have these areas that are sensitive that like, kind of rubbing, quote unquote rubbing for years and years and years. And if you don't apply the anti-chafe balm, Body Glide or chamois butter, whatever your anti-chafe of choice is, those pains can get so bad it'll knock you out of the race. So kind of to your question of, how do you move into comfort? I mean, two things. One, I think most important, it's a function of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. You know, every time I run for hours and do an ultra marathon, it hurts. It sucks. It's not fun. So, but it's a matter of just practicing being uncomfortable. Same
Can
thing
you
in
can you
business.
can you excuse me? Can you explain a little bit more? So
Yeah,
being in
being
so
comfortable, being
yeah, yeah.
uncomfortable. Yeah, so like I remember years ago when I just started getting into running ultras, there was a group of us that would run, and one of the women she's just a great runner, better than me. and we would go out for a run. And I remember we went out for like, I think it was a 5-hour run on Saturday, and she was going to go for a 3-hour run on Sunday. I'm like, oh my God, really? And she goes, yeah, I have to get used to running on tired legs, so that when my legs get tired, I'm just used to running on them. And so, that's the sport version. In business, when you have setbacks, when you're frustrated, say about your books, or you don't understand how to address the books, the comfort comes from, as an entrepreneur, it's always uncomfortable. There's always challenges. There's always, and rather than taking those setbacks, taking those challenges as a frustration, as a, oh my God, as a, oh, this is horrible, taking it as an opportunity to grow and become better. Same thing in a race. When you learn how to run for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, when your legs are done, next time you can run further. In business, when you're up again, when your biggest client quits on you or fires you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I don't have enough revenue to make payroll next week, it forces you to find a solution that's bigger and better. I mean, I think everybody's pretty tired of talking about COVID right now. My business, we lost 35% of our revenue, not because our clients would call us, say, look, we're closed. Yep. We have clients who are in the event business. There's 0 events going on. We have clients who are in retail. There's no retail going on, or at least in their type of retail. They weren't in food. Yep. So, they called us, and it's like, well, of course, we'll work with you because we want to come back online with you when things get better, and who knows when. And so, rather than being in this mode, I was in a terrible place when kind of all of the official shutdowns started rolling out, and it was like a domino effect of everybody closing down, and the big, at least in my part of the world, when all the big sporting leagues and all of that just created this big knock-on effect.
In Europe first, as well. In Europe,
of course. We were after you by several weeks.
Yeah.
And as that happened when it first happened, I went into a really dark place. And it only was one day. And then I realized, there's actually an opportunity here to rethink the business model, to re-challenge everything we're doing, and all of this discomfort about, 35% of revenue. That's a lot of revenue for any business. And I know businesses lost 80, 90, 100%. Wow. I'm kind of lucky to only have lost 35. But we reevaluated, and we've taken the last 6 weeks. So for us, this has been 6 weeks. I know for you a lot longer. But we've basically restructured so much of our business and used it as an opportunity, because I've gotten to a point where I'm comfortable in those uncomfortable situations. There's a speaker out here, former U.S. Navy SEAL, David Goggins. He talks about embrace the suck. Embrace the fact that it sucks, because the more you can perform when things aren't good, imagine how easy it's going to be perform when things are good. You run for 5 hours when your legs are tired. Imagine how good you feel when you only have to run for 90 minutes. It's amazing. Same thing. My business is already stronger and will be so much stronger when the rest of our customers. We've won new clients because we've changed how we market our business. We've won new clients because we've offered a service that we're seeing clients need really desperately now. So we've taken this really uncomfortable situation and really used it as an opportunity to become better and grow. And that's really what I mean by getting comfortable with the discomfort, be it in sport or be it in business and life. Same thing with relationships. I look at it, when you're having a tough time with your significant other, it's a great opportunity to actually learn and grow. And maybe we're not communicating well. Maybe we need to set time aside in the week to focus on whatever it is that you need. The hard times are the looking glass, the lens into good times in the future. That's the mindset I try to live to. Sometimes I just think it sucks. I mean, it just is what it is.
Let's immerse a little bit more into your mindset before going on to your business model. So on the personal level, do you have any thoughts regarding your breathing, your contact with yourself, anything like that?
Sure. So I have a practice that I've been using for a while, and it actually starts in the evening. Of course, gratitude, and I don't want to get into too many things that are pretty common practice now, but I reflect what are 3 or 4 great things that happened today, just prime the mind before bed. And then one of the things that I think is one of the most important things I've brought is I think about this before bed. What is the most important question I'm trying to answer? It's usually like a problem or something I'm frustrated or stuck with. And I just put it in my journal. I do a few other things to prepare for bed because I think sleep is so critical, temperature in the room, make it dark. I track my sleep, of course. So there's a few things I do sort of tactically around sleep. And then in the morning, so when I get up, I of course start my day with gratitudes. I do a meditation. I do a guided meditation, and I use a device that actually measures my heart rate variability and my breath rate during meditation. And I wear earbuds, and it gives me a little tone when my breathing, it falls out of consistency.
Can you tell us the name of the device?
Yeah, there's 2 that I use. One is called Inner Balance.
Okay.
I think the website is I Love Heart Math. I have no financial interest in it. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So I use that, and the other one's Muse, M-U-S-E.
Yeah, Muse.
Yeah.
Probably the most used one at the moment globally.
Yeah. So I go back and forth between those 2 as part of the meditation. Then, of course, I come back and do a gratitude. And then I spend a little bit of time journaling about my question from the night before. And, the concept is it goes into your subconscious overnight. And then you think about it after meditation when you get your mind in the right space. And so there's that. And then there's a number of physical things I do. So,
excuse me, how long do you sleep?
My
Usually,
goal,
approximately.
my goal. So I tend to try and be in bed by 10 and sort of like preparing so that at 10 p.m. and I don't use an alarm, but I'm always up before 6. So 7.5.
So you have the whole cycle. You have the REM part of it.
Yeah. The 90-minute, 5 90-minute cycles is always my goal. And then I use an Oura ring. I've lost it actually recently, so I have to order a new one. I play with things too much. I'm fiddly, so I take it off. I put it down somewhere. I don't know where. I keep hoping it shows up, but I haven't found it. So yeah, I track my sleep through the Oura ring so I can exactly see those sleep cycles. Because, sleep is, as you know, one of the most important things you can do for. Sometimes you hear speakers and they talk about you need to want to be successful more than you want to sleep. And I'm like, I disagree. The sleep is going to help be successful. So,
I understand you. What about eating? Now, eating, I mean, I spoke with a lot of guys. Okay, good. I mean, I spoke with a lot of guys. I don't know about you. You have your podcast as well. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think about not eating before, let's say, noon? Or what's your habit? Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm so health and mental health and physical health to me are all combined. So, the same way I'm very, you could almost say obsessive about sleep. Same thing about eating. I mean, I'm certainly not perfect. So I tend to do intermittent fasting. I tend to finish eating around 8, and I usually don't start until 10 a.m. But that's maybe 4 to 5 times a week. I don't do it every day. Mm-hmm. And I tend to follow not a perfect, but a pretty close keto style diet. So, 50% fat, 30% protein, 20% carbs. I'm a little bit higher on carbs, mostly because I add more fruit and vegetable. So for me, I just learned over time that when I get into refined flours and refined sugars, that's my problem. That's an energetic problem. I'm not fat by any measure.
No, you are not, definitely. But what do you
mean
around
by my
sugars?
belly? But
what
around my belly gets fat. So white sugar. White sugar.
White sugar. Okay.
So like I don't, and yes, technically speaking, fruit sugar, the body treats it the same way. But I find if I eat an apple or an orange, it's very different than I feed.
Excuse me, do you use shaker? Because I found out that if I take too much apples and put it in the shaker, I will get too much sugar. So it's not very healthy.
Yeah.
So.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Do you have any contact with your body, with your higher self, or how do you manage it?
For me, it's an energetic. So I'm aware of my energy. And so one of the things that happened when I was running, actually after I ran the 100-miler, that was in, when was that? That was 2013. So after 2008, I had 3 businesses that were all struggling at the same time, and I was running ultra marathons.
Wow.
And my body crashed, and it took me a couple of years to recover. So I'm actually very
years to recover.
Years.
Can you please explain it in more details?
So it would be like at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. if I was out with friends, I just wanted to go home and go to bed. I couldn't sleep enough. I'm an ultra distance runner, and I was, quitting. I was like, I had a run planned and I wouldn't go, and I'd just sit at home. I'd be on the couch.
How much hours did you work at that time?
Like work or workout? Sport?
No, not workout. Working.
So I've always tried to be so depends what you define work. I work a regular-ish work hour, so that would be kind of
3 businesses. So regarding your
we had a full management team in 2 of them. So I would say it was kind of like 50-hour work week, but the problem is the brain never stops. So like at 8 o'clock at night, I'm still thinking about what happened during the day. And so when you talk about, so a lot of my morning practice and my evening practice is around getting my brain away from the problems that I'm dealing with, get out of that negative space, because I think that's, as an entrepreneur, that's what really brings us down so much, is all of the problems. We never run out of problems as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And that's where kind of that embrace the suck mindset comes in, is these aren't problems. These are opportunities to learn and grow and get better. And so, when I was in that burnout, I just wanted to be home. I wasn't motivated. I didn't want to when I had work to do, I didn't want to do it. Everything, my girlfriend at the time, who I'm not with, and my best friend both said, "We think you're depressed." And I'm like, I don't think I'm depressed. I'm just tired. Like I have no energy. And I don't know, maybe that is depressed, but I think I put my body under so much stress because the stress of having 3 businesses struggling at the same time in a difficult environment, economic climate, plus the physical stress of running ultra marathons, I wasn't getting enough rest. So my body kind of, and I'm sure you've heard, the body just kind of quit. And so it took me a couple of years, and I was working with naturopath.
Excuse me, body like your legs, or the whole body, or? What was the physical manifestation of it?
Energy. For me, it was all energy.
Energy flow.
I just didn't want to get off the couch.
Okay, I understand.
I could mornings, like I could get 9 hours of sleep and not have the energy to get out of bed. And then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like I started doing it so I would take naps in the day because I couldn't make it through the day. I still like to nap, but that's because I enjoy it and I feel good. And so, it was 2 years, and I was working with a naturopath, and we were, I was doing hormone testing. I was doing, I've done genetic testing to know what, I've done a lot of gut microbiome testing to see what foods are the most best for me. So when I talk about a keto diet where I'm okay with some foods that aren't classically keto, it's because I've done enough testing to know what my body really likes. And so again, it's that sugar and flour. If I start eating cookies and cake, even bread, my energy level comes down. Whereas if I'm more whole food style, more keto style, even if I'm not perfect with the ratios, I tend that serves my energy. So for me, it's 1:30 p.m. All I've had today is a shake around 10:30 a.m.
What kind of shake?
So it was a protein shake.
Okay.
And so I don't actually blend it. It's actually a vegan powder. Okay. I'm not vegan, but I like the brand. And so I actually add to that a lot of seeds and nuts. So I put in chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds. I put in cinnamon. I put in, all of the superfoods. You call me you can say I fall prey to the
energy
superfood.
Boosting.
Yeah, you and me both. Okay, well we'll cheers on our next shake together. Yeah. And I don't put any fruit. I don't put anything else in. And I just stir it and I kind of crunch cocoa nibs. I just kind of chew my shake.
Can you explain why not fruit?
For me, this might be a different answer that you're looking for. For me, I actually stopped enjoying shakes that were blended with frozen fruit because I just found them harder to
Frozen
eat.
fruit. Okay, I understand.
That's all it was.
Yeah, I understand.
Whereas when it's in a liquid form, and the other thing, and that's a bit later in the day, but certainly as part of my morning routine, I have a half a liter of tea. So this morning I made just tea out of just ginger. I chopped ginger, put it in a strainer. I have a minimum a half liter of that, minimum a half liter of water. So I start the day with a liter of water.
How
And then
much
I
of ginger
maintain.
do you use? Do you have any breaks regarding ginger, or you're using ginger? Because my partner and I, we are using ginger for a month and then we take a break and then we are using it because it's very powerful. It's
Yeah, it
very
is.
strong.
So I tend not to do ginger every morning. There's about
Okay.
3 or 4 teas I like: ginger tea, peppermint, just because I like it. And then when I want to do, if you know the bulletproof coffee kind of thing, I'm sure, where you put
No, if you
the
can describe it, please.
Sure. So Bulletproof is a brand. Dave Asprey, really interesting guy, wants to live to 180. In fact, I was supposed to go to Upgrade Labs in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, I think, and they have all the latest toys and gadgets. I was scheduled to go there at the end of March, but of course canceled it because of we all know why. And so his thing is you make a coffee, and caffeine is actually important in the beginning of the day. It's a mind enhancing drug, quote unquote drug. And so he'll mix that with grass fed butter and an MCT oil, and he'll do a blender. I don't drink coffee, so my version is I used to use green and black tea as that's where I would get the caffeine. But in the testing that I've done,
any green tea or a specific one?
I had one. I was using a specific black tea, which was I can't pronounce it, pu'er or something.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, okay, sure. We can put in a LinkedIn post later on or something like that. Yeah.
So that, and then a green tea, just like a strong green tea. But I actually, in the testing I did, the genetics testing said green and black tea weren't great for me. So I actually went to a yerba mate. So that's where I get caffeine. So if I have a day where I feel like I need a little bit of caffeine, I'll have a yerba mate tea. Otherwise, I'll do a peppermint or a ginger. So I tend to do those. I like to not do the same thing every day forever. I like to, mostly because I get bored, but I also think it's good for the body to have some variety. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert.
So if I understood you well, there is a correlation between your specific tests and what you are taking to in your body. If I understood you well. So for every one of us, it's probably a different
I love
percentage
the idea.
or
absolutely love the idea of customizing our health. So again, I'm 46, so I'm getting very specific with this now. I didn't think about this 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, I'm 45, so
so we're almost
the same. So I understand you completely.
I love the specificness of these tests. So like the test I did was called Nutrition Genome. They send you a swab kit, you swab, you send it away. And
excuse me, is it something online? We can
I don't know. So like one of the tests was that, and you have to send it across the border with this, it's a human sample. So I don't know about going from Europe. There'll be a European version of this.
Under
it's
24
US.
hours or okay.
Yeah, this was from the US. I'm sure there's a European. There's probably better versions in Europe, to be honest.
Yeah, who knows? Probably, yeah.
But so there's lots of them. This isn't the only one. And so what they do is once they read your genome, like the 23andMe or the more popular gene testing companies, they actually read the genes that turn on and off relative to your food. So, and I'm not an expert, but, you get into the epigenomics and which genes are turning on and off. And so based on the genes, like I've learned, I actually process saturated fat very well. So animal fats are actually good for me, whereas the carbohydrates are not. And, as an ultra runner, I would literally live on carbohydrates. I would have my what I would put in my water was 100% sugar. Not raw sugar. It was a product that had other minerals and stuff, but it was only sugar. And that was probably the worst thing I could have been doing for myself, but I didn't know better at the time. So I just don't believe there's one diet that works for all of us. There isn't one thing that works for all of us. So, I mean, some people, I know one person who can't intermittent fast at breakfast. So he eats breakfast, but then doesn't eat dinner because that just works for him. I'll tell you though, if I try intermittent fasting where I don't eat dinner, I won't sleep because I get so high. I have a very fast metabolism and I'll get hungry. So I'll wake up hungry and when I get hungry, I get quite angry. And I find if there's a problem, I can't solve problems when I'm hungry. This is all so individualistic that, I did a gene test, I did a hormone test, I did a gut microbiome test, and, they're finding more and more about how our gut, is related to longevity and disease and all that type of thing. So, and that was a really interesting test. Not fun to take. That you have to.
Why?
That's a stool sample.
No, not going to why. Okay.
Okay. So you send that in, and so all of these very custom things, I find the closer I follow the recommendations, the better I feel and the more energetic I am. And I take supplements based on the results of those tests, and I behave based on the results of those tests. And I'm not perfect, and I love a bag of chips just like everybody else. And if I'm going to eat chocolate, it'll be a nice 75% dark. But I'm pretty good at not eating the junk anymore. Just because when I feel good, I feel so, what is the saying, I got to get this right, is good habits are hard to create, but easy to live with. But bad habits are easy to create, but hard to live with. Absolutely. Like when we have bad habits today, we don't notice the bad habit till the future.
Absolutely.
And our good habits cost us today, but we feel the goodness in the future. So it takes a lot of discipline, and I struggle like everybody else. I'm far from perfect, but
Sure thing. Let's go back to brain space. So if you can define your brain space then and now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was in your brain space?
Yeah. I think it's an evolution, obviously, where we are. And a lot of it, and this is classic stuff. I mean, you were asking about breath work and meditation, is the awareness of our breath space or our brain space. So brain state.
Well, actually, you spoke about your brain space during running 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Did you find anything interesting enough to share with us?
Yeah, I found something I learned, and I've talked to other people who have the exact same experience, is what I didn't realize until I became aware of it was how much I was arguing in my own brain. I was arguing with other people. I'd drive into work ready for an argument with staff. I was waiting for a phone call to come in with an argument from a supplier or a customer. I'd drive home and my partner, I'd be ready for an argument. And I was always preparing for an argument, which is crazy, and sometimes
it's inner communication. It's
exactly
neuro-linguistic programming. I absolutely understand you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm always ready for this fight. And then somebody comes in like, hey, how you doing? How are you having a great day? And I'm like, I'm almost disappointed it wasn't a fight. And so, I became very aware around when I'm arguing and making a decision in that moment. And that's the hardest part, right? And it sounds so easy, but it's so hard to do, to turn it to be like, okay, I don't want to argue.
Excuse me. Are we speaking about the period when you were nearby burning out? Because basically that's my focus. So
that was a long time, like my whole life I did that, I think. And I think that led in part to the burnout. So it was the
evolution, as you told.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then I think it also led to the burnout because I was always in an agitated state. The cortisone levels are up when you're in an argument,
I
cortisol levels,
similar issues. Yeah, right. I understand you.
And so I did a few things. So one, I made the intention of when I caught myself arguing, first of all, to acknowledge it, stop. And then what is the one thing I can do that's the productive? right now? Or what, how can I think of what's the one thing in my life I want to change? And that informs that question I do at night. What can I do? And so that was part of it. And now I've evolved to where I put like an intention for the year. So, I spent the last couple of years really on health. That was because of the burnout, and I'm feeling good, mostly better. I still have days where I'm very tired. And now I've moved to kind of the emotional side. And so it's like, what's my intention? And one of the things for me is, and I'll share a couple of them, is I've always been kind of flat emotion. Some people are high and low. I'm quite flat. And so I want to experience all the ranges of emotion. So I set intention around that. And then so I review that weekly. Another one is like, how do I be present to the abundance around me? And, I'm very lucky. I live in Vancouver. It's a beautiful city. I'm very fortunate. I've many, many things to be grateful for. But often, because I get caught up in the problems of the day, I stop forgetting about all the great things I have in my life. So it's like, I'm always trying to create more and be more and do more, whereas what I have now is also amazing. So how do I just be more present to how great things are now, so I can just really enjoy and appreciate? Entrepreneurs, it's always go, go, go. There's always the next thing, the next hurdle, the next goal. If I'm not going to run 50 miles, I'm going to run 100 miles. If I've got, 50 employees, I want 100 employees, whatever. And I never stop to go like, wow, I just ran 100 miles. Wow, I have 50 employees. Right now, my business is is smaller, but I've had like 300 employees before. So, it's so easy to get caught up in that. So now what I'm doing with my mind is I'm just trying to be so much more intentional about where my mind is, as opposed to just being like on, it's almost, you think about, you have the TV or the radio on in the background, and there's just always that noise that you're not in control of. I'm just trying to be way more intentional and focused and slower. You see how fast I get going when I'm talking. Slow down, that type of thing.
Can we merge somehow where your mind is now with your business model you have regarding your shift financial insights?
I'll tell you one thing that just occurred to me as you were asking that question. So I work with a coach now as well. He's a wonderful coach. And, the last 6 weeks have been pretty crazy busy, right? And he said to me, what, you're going so fast, what can you do to slow down? And I thought to myself, okay, well, so I do a lot of speaking, and in my speaking, the intention is to, offer a lot of value and let people take whatever they can out of it. And if it resonates with them and they feel like they need our services, or they maybe want to replace their accounting department because it's failing, then of course I'm available. And there's some business development there, but never in a salesy way. And so, we were having this conversation, and he said, you're going so fast and you're doing so many talks. Imagine if you only had one talk this year. How would you approach that differently? How would you treat that audience differently? And I'm very fortunate that I've done a lot of speaking. I'm very comfortable with my material, and it's fortunate that I get good ratings. And so I don't need to change the content, but then I had all of these ideas around how I can make it more personal for each person in the audience, and how can I create more value for each person individually there with almost the same work for me. So it's not like I have to go 100 miles an hour, but I can offer so much more value from each talk. And so from a mindset shift is, before, when it was always the spinning, going as fast as I can, or arguing and, that type of thing. Now it's okay, with each moment. With my interview with you, I mean, I mentioned before we started, I came into the back room because there's construction next door. What are the little things I can do to be more present for you? I know I operate better when I do an intermittent fasting morning. So I prepared for this. I did intermittent fasting, but I also had a shake because I knew if I hadn't had some food by now, I wouldn't be at my best. So everything. So now it's a matter of, it's not the volume of things I'm doing in a day, it's the quality of it. And, it's amazing what can shift one thought can change the entire business model, the entire value proposition, rather than going on in that robot mode where we just go over and over.
Autopilot, yes.
Autopilot mode, you're 100%. How do I slow down and just really, really get value for that? So I actually have a talk next week, and I'm putting these new steps in place, and I'm so excited to see what difference it is, because the talk I've got pretty dialed. Like, I've done it lots. I know it's of value. I feel really positive about it. But now I've added 2 or 3 things to personalize it for the individual and get them. And what are the things that people weren't getting before, and changing 2 slides, those little things I feel so good about that. That's really from a mindset. If I'm in autopilot, if I'm in argue mode, if I'm in super fast mode, I would never have found those 2 or 3 little gems, because when you're going so fast, creating that creative source. I've made Mondays no meeting Mondays. Mondays is just to create space, to think, to write, to come up with what's the next idea, that type of thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's a pretty big shift mentally.
Yeah, that's amazing. My last discussion was with a thought leader from India, and he has every Wednesday it's day for thinking, without any specific job. So it's interesting. You are in Canada, he's in India, and it's pretty similar. What is a moment for you? Is it like Eckhart Tolle, here and now, or is it something else? Or
yeah, that's a great question. That's actually really deep.
It is.
That's a really deep question. For me, the moment. So one, it's creating the space. So there's the tactical side, which is I actually have to create the space for the moments. That's partly what Monday is. It's partly why I try not to take meetings before 9 a.m. and I allow myself space to do my morning routine with the journal. So the moments for me is when I'm here now, and I'm not thinking about my next meeting. I'm not thinking about my next vacation. So to me, that's the power of the moment, is just when it's here. And I think even when I was running as much as I did, very quick story, and I use this as a reference point in my life a lot. We did an out and back crossing of the Grand Canyon. It was 50 miles, 80 kilometers, and 11,000 feet by the time you go down, up, down, up. Was 11,000 feet of climbing. And it was actually, even though I've done a run twice as long, that was the worst I ever felt running. And I was coming back up, and it was a 5,000 foot climb. And like, for reference, I live in Vancouver. Whistler is a ski resort. It's kind of pretty well known around the world now. And it's, from the top to the base is 5,000 feet. So this is one of the big ski resorts in the world. So we're talking about climbing up the equivalent of one of the biggest ski resorts.
Wow.
5,000 feet. And I was feeling terrible, and I didn't have a choice. Like, I can't just sit down. I'm in the middle of the Grand Canyon. You got to get out. And so I remember I got to a point where I was feeling so terrible that I just, like my defenses, we all walk around with our defenses every day and our armor, quote unquote.
Yeah, sure.
It was all gone because I didn't have energy for the defenses. And it was just like, I feel terrible. If you don't like that I feel terrible, I don't care. If you don't like how I'm being right now, I'm just being me, because I have no energy for anything else. And so for me, that was one of the most present moments in my life, where I was only focused on exactly what was happening there. And I use that as an example for myself often of, I had to beat myself up. I've got a thick head, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm crazy. And I had to go running 50 miles to break myself down enough to be able to really be fully present. And so I reflect on that moment a lot. I meditate on that moment a lot, and try and bring that into my days, to be like, what is it like to really just be true and authentic? Like, I'm loving this conversation. I've been lucky. I've done lots of podcasts, and I end up talking about accounting in this report or that report, and I'm happy to do that. But this is the gold. Like, this is what makes us who we are, and creates, like, maybe somebody will hear something and elevate their life. And, I've already learned things from you about elevating mine, and, how you're living right now, and the challenges and all of that, and just meeting your wife and your dog. Like, how incredible is that? We can spend our life talking about this accounting or that. Like, well, I mean, I'm very passionate about it. It's what I love
I
to help
understand,
entrepreneurs.
absolutely. Yeah, sure.
And it's in those moments of connection that's really, really the depth.
Sure.
So those are my moments. That's
Sure.
what I mean by a moment.
Sure. So if I understood you well, you have a space like a context, and you have a reflection as a path for being authentic. And what's in the core, or what's the core of the process?
Yeah, great question. I struggle to explain this because while I understand it intellectually, it's hard to.
It's hard to speak with our words, definitely.
Yeah, it's as silly sounding as awareness, just awareness of where the mind is at. And that's again why I set those intentions. And you said authentic, right? I've always held back myself about how I express myself because of what somebody might think. So now my intention is, if I want to do something, if it's your wife was dancing in behind for a moment there, some people would be afraid to do that because they don't want to be seen on camera dancing. If I want to dance, I'll dance. If I want to sing, I'll sing. And if you don't like my singing, and that's the awareness, right? Is she's taken this very challenging time and used it as a way to create positivity. And without awareness, we can't do that. Without awareness, we get in that robot mode. What did you call it? The
autopilot mode.
Autopilot, yeah. And so how do we get out of that? And it's like, okay, well, I choose to express myself the way I want to express myself. I'm actually, this might surprise you, but I'm pretty shy. And if I was actually speaking, believe it or not, in Nicaragua in Central America.
Wow.
A few months in last year before
Beautiful.
kind of everything happened. And I remember I was in a beautiful little town. I took some extra time to do some writing for my book, and I was in a restaurant. I was by myself, and there was a young lady sitting at a table by herself, and I was gonna go, and I wanted to go sit down and have, say, hey, can I join you for lunch? And I had no intention. I had a girlfriend at home. It was just, it's nice to have lunch with somebody. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, maybe she's going to think I'm trying to hit on her or pick her up or that. And she was quite a bit younger than me. And so I ended up sitting at a different table by myself. I'm like, and afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Like, she could have said no, and I sit at the table by myself anyway. And so when I say expressing myself, that's what I mean. Like, and since then, there have been many times where it's like I come in, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't. Oh, actually, no, I want to express myself. And if they don't take it as how I intend it, well, okay, then life goes on. And so I've actually made a couple of friends, and I've had some amazing conversations with people that in the past I wouldn't have, because of the awareness of what I want to create and how I want to show up in this world compared to how I'm being. So again, part of that evening reflection is, where am I not aligned with how I want to be? And that way, the next time it happens, I'm more ready. That's the tactical, more ready to express myself fully. So if next time I'm in Nicaragua and I walk in and there's somebody sitting by, and it could have been a guy, it didn't matter that it was a woman, it could have been you. And imagine the conversation we could have had if that was you at the table, but I was too shy to come up and say hello. So now I've had so many rich conversations, even what we're talking about here, with strangers about how they live their life and what intentions are they setting. I mean, how much more interesting is that than what are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to a few more practical advices. So we spoke about you getting up at about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And you have
no alarm.
With no alarm.
No alarm.
And
unless I have a meeting, of course, that's early. Like tomorrow, I have a call at 6 a.m. I'll set an alarm for 5:30 just to make sure.
Okay, sure.
But I like the idea, and you were talking about the sleep cycles before. Yeah. I want to wake up at the top of a sleep cycle, not in the depth of a sleep cycle. Okay. So if for some reason I fall asleep later, and that means I wake up at 6:15, great. If that means I wake up at 5:45, great. But I always wake up within a half an hour, and that way I don't get jolted alert from the alarm.
Sure.
Anyway. Sorry to interrupt. So 6 a.m. ish, yes.
I understand. No, fine.
Yeah.
we are in a conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
some people after they wake up, they start learning. Do you start with generating your space as we defined it and some reflections, or are you going running, exercising? Do you have any
routine?
practice routine, or is it every day it's different?
No, I have a pretty long routine actually, which is why I don't set meetings till 9. And that includes, like I think I mentioned before, the one question from the night before, the gratitudes. I do read, so that can be, I really like books with short chapters. I'm reading a great book right now called Time Warrior. My coach recommended it to me. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, I heard about it. I still did not start reading it, but I will definitely.
Yeah, it's really good, and like 2 and 3 page chapters. So like, I might read only one of those, and sometimes I'll read 5 of them. So I love books like that. So I'll do that. I'm learning French right now, so I'll do some Duolingo French practice. And then my physical is a mix of back exercises, because I shared with you my chronic back. So I do, I've got about 6 or 7 back exercises, and when I do them religiously, my back doesn't hurt. When I get lazy, my back hurts. So I don't get lazy for very long.
So you get feedback from your body.
Very quickly. And then, for me, because I've always been such an endurance athlete, one of the tests I did when I was sort of working on my physical space was a scan of my body. It showed I had very low bone density. So actually, like, I'm one step away from osteoporosis, which my grandfather had, and I do not want to have. And so I actually have to do more weights now. And I don't like doing weights, but I want to live healthy for a long time.
Of
and
course.
Right now it's hard because I don't have a full gym at home.
Yeah, sure.
And I can't go to the gym. But I have a couple dumbbells here, and I'll do push-ups and pull-ups and that type of thing. So I do more body strengthening type things. And then I always try and have every day, almost every day, even if it's like a 7-minute HIIT workout, a high intensity interval training, where it's.
Can you define it?
So there's different versions, but it's often like 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So 20 seconds of push-ups, 10 seconds rest. 20 seconds of jumping jacks, 10-second rest. 20 seconds of running on the spot. Yeah. And so there's tons
you're basically working with your body.
Yeah. So there's always a physical element in the morning. It's so important for the mind. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor, but you can find study after study after study that says if you start the morning with some sort of physical workout. I mean, and especially now, and I'm lucky in Vancouver, I can leave the house, I can walk around the block, I can go for a run on the trails. I live near trails here, so I do that a lot. And there's very few people out. So we're not on full lockdown, so that's lucky. But especially for people at home stuck on lockdown, doing you don't need a fancy stuff, right? You can do a HIIT workout with no equipment whatsoever other than the floor, right? And there's so many of them you can find on YouTube. It's just the resources are all there.
Is it something that you started after you burned out, or?
So a lot of the practices that I do now are more intentional because they're either addressing my physical burnout, my back issue, and those also came together because when my back was so bad, you mentioned you had chronic back issues.
Sure. Yeah.
When you can't work out, that also impacts your mental health.
Mental health, yeah.
And so for people who don't work out at all and they start working out, they start seeing the benefits. Whereas when those of us who are accustomed to working out, we can't, it really becomes a negative drain. So for me, like for a long time, I didn't have to worry about being intentional with working out because when you're training for an ultra marathon, you're getting exercise every day.
Absolutely.
And I love sport, and I mean, it's limited right now. But I love climbing. So there's an indoor climbing gym. It's closed right now, but I'm looking forward to doing that again. Biking outside, running outside. So in the past, I've just always been active, and now it's more intentional, where I'm not just exercising because it's fun. I'm exercising because I'm trying to achieve a physical goal of health, and my tests are all, I track those to see, am I progressing? Especially at my age, if I can hold how I am now, it's great. I'm more fit than most 30-year-olds, right? So.
Absolutely. So how does it fit, better to say, how does it influence on you managing your employees, you doing your daily business?
So first of all, I built my business, fortunately, is totally remote right from day one. So everybody's accustomed to being at home and being remote. All of our accountants work from home. My president works from home, where everybody works from home. And I also built this with the intention of flexibility. So, I think all of our accountants are parents, and some of them, and not right now, but they like to pick up kids from school or drop them at school. So some I know start at 4 a.m. because it's quiet and they like to work. I know one likes to work at 10 p.m. I don't care. You get your work done whenever you want to get it done. Yes, we have meetings and people have to be present for meetings. And yes, we have client obligations. You have to be available for that. But you do what works for you. So if your life is richer because you can pick up your kids at 3 o'clock every day, when if you were going to an office, you couldn't, that's a gift that I want our whole team to have and enjoy. So everybody has access to my calendar. If they want to book a time, there's slots that are available for booking. If it's urgent, of course, like if it's something's going on and it's 7:30 a.m., I'm available if it's urgent. But generally speaking, everybody knows my schedule. There's time available for them. And most often our interruptions are because somebody else has something, not because it's actually urgent. So it's just, Mondays, people know I'm not available unless it's urgent.
Excuse me, regarding urgency, do you have your own personal assistant dealing with urgency, or?
Yeah, so.
I mean, what's your business model?
So the model is yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And generally my assistant manages my email, and we actually have a folder called urgent, and that's the only one I look at.
Ah, okay.
We have another folder called procrastinate that I go in once a week and I clear out. And that's stuff FYI, or get to it when you can, or somebody's asking a question that's not urgent. Right now, and I mean, as I said, our business went down 35%. We made the decision to go without an assistant. So it's a bit harder because I'm managing my own email, and I fall behind. And generally the way it works now is by Friday afternoon, I get stressed out about my email and I go and I blitz it. And
but
I
fortunately, you are in sport a lot, so you have your anti-stress techniques.
Exactly, yeah. So I've also learned kind of, and this is a mindset thing. I don't look at email until 9 a.m. I really don't. If my team needs me, they know to text me. I'll respond to a text.
So and you have your own space from approximately 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Pretty much every day. It gets interrupted with, other meetings, or like I mentioned the Entrepreneurs Organization because I'm a member of a couple global committees. The problem when you do a global call and you're in Vancouver, it means the calls are always at 5:30 a.m. because that means it's 11:30 p.m. for somebody. Sure. And if, I think the people that have it the best are the ones in Eastern North American time zone. It's always 9 a.m.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
For us, what time is it for you right now?
Oh, it's 11 p.m. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here we are,
Yeah. I understand you completely. Thank you as well.
So, there's exceptions. And I mean, I don't live my life with everything as a hard and fast rule. If I have a call at 6 a.m., it means I don't do my morning routine that day. And I'm okay with that as long as I don't miss it more than a couple of times. And then because I find it's a habit. And if I'm out of the habit, it's easy to keep missing it. When I'm in the habit, I'm good. Same with my night routine. If I miss it too many days in a row, then I start forgetting about it. But when I'm very disciplined with it, the days I don't have that morning time, I feel it the rest of the day. My mind, I feel it. And so it's gotten to the point where I look forward to that. But in the beginning, it was a chore to do. It was one of those, good habits are hard to create, but easy to live with. And so it took a long time to get to this point. It took me probably a couple of years of being really disciplined with the routine. And then I'd start it, and then I wouldn't do it for 3 months, and then I'd forget, oh, okay, I'll do it again.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
we are almost done with our 1 hour conversation. Do you have any special offer for our audience, Spencer?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, there's a couple of thoughts on that. And my approach to this is, as I said before, my why is to help entrepreneurs change the world by helping them through their financial blind spot. And so there's a couple of things. So I recently put out a book called Entreprenumbers. I released it 2 weeks before the apocalypse happened.
Okay.
Luckily, fortunately for me, we did very well in the beginning, and it's a bestseller. It's a bestseller on Amazon now in both Canada and the US.
Congrats.
Thank you. There was a lot of work to put that together. And in there, so, I really speak to entrepreneurs who struggle with their financials. And actually, it doesn't really matter what country, it doesn't matter what the rules are, because they're similar enough. And so for me, it's all about how to get information in a way that's easily to be used for the entrepreneur. So that's what Entreprenumbers is. It's not an accounting text. There's stories, there's jokes, it's fun. And so if anybody's struggling, that's a great place to start. And entreprenumbers.com, there's a bunch of free downloads there where you can go, and it's like there's 5 very easy questions you can ask your accounting team to see if they're up for it, to see if they know how to get you there.
Beautiful domain name, by the way.
Thank you. Entreprenumbers.com. And so there's that. There's a download of a sample reporting package. And a lot of what I talk about is taking the data and taking it from like the ugly accountant form into pictures, graphs, charts, that as soon as you see it, you instantly understand the story. Oh, wow, we're going the wrong way for the last 3 months. I didn't realize that. Because
not for digital people, but for visual type of people.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
And especially non-financial people. So there's an example of a package that any of your listeners who are entrepreneurs can take to their accounting team and say, give this to me. And, if anybody, all my contact details out in the world, and I've got LinkedIn and, Facebook, all the good things, which you wouldn't be surprised I don't manage myself, because I try to actually not spend too much time on social media.
I understand. I understand.
But it is managed, and so if somebody's really struggling with this, and it actually really doesn't matter where in the world it is, we're really best suited for service-based entrepreneurs who are doing up to about 10 million US dollars. Beyond that, I think you need a team in-house.
Sure.
Some people argue you can still outsource it, but I would argue against that, depending on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if somebody's really struggling, if they send me an email or a LinkedIn message referencing your podcast, I'm happy to have a conversation with them for free, half-hour consulting. I offer that up. And I'll let you know whenever anybody does, so you can see who's listening and calling me from around the world.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm happy to offer that up to your listeners. I mean, I make $2 a book. It's not that I'm trying to sell a bunch of books and get rich. It's about I'm trying to help people. And I've had several people tell me they've read the book and made changes in their business that have been game changing. So I'm super passionate about this. I'm super passionate about helping entrepreneurs. I'm super passionate about seeing what entrepreneurs can do to make change in the world, especially today. We're going to get through this because entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to inspire change in the world and take action in the world and be the first ones to take the risks when other people aren't willing to. So that book is a great resource. A lot of free downloads, a lot of free available stuff for you. And if somebody, once they've had a chance to look through that, has questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Spencer at shiftfinancial.co. That one's not .com because somebody reserved it and wanted to charge me $14,000 for the domain name, and I said no.
Shame on them.
Exactly. I will not be held hostage.
Don't do it.
To people.
Don't do it.
So we went.
I know you can pay it, but don't do it.
Don't know. That's dirty. So shiftfinancial.co. Spencer at shiftfinancial.co. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody who's struggling with knowing if their accounting team is doing a good job, needing some advice or some help there. It's my gift to all of your listeners.
So, Spencer, My new friend, thank you so much for being into the 21st century entrepreneurship. We had a great time.
Pleasure.
I mean, we really
amazing. This is one of my favorite interviews. One of my favorite interviews
thank you very
ever.
much.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Thanks for listening.